Okay, so hello everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's Foothold webinar. I'm your host today, Michael Hargreaves. I'm the Communications Officer at Foothold, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Matt Craven from the CV and Interview Advisors, who will be presenting today's session. So I know it's the new year, we're well into 2023 now, but obviously a lot of people at the start of a new year start to think about where they are in life and certainly in their career as well. And maybe you've been thinking that it's time for a job change, or maybe you're thinking, how can I progress in my current organization? How can I climb that career ladder, get more opportunities, boost my income, and get to where I want to be? Or maybe you're actually thinking about taking the leap into self-employment and setting up your own engineering consultancy or your own business or whatever it is. And that would be a big change. So that's what we're going to be focusing on over this careers mini series of webinars that's taking place from today until Friday this week. And today is the first session, which will focus on selling yourself in the job market to get more interviews and job offers. So actually, how can I find a job that's right for me? Whether it's a new job in a different organization, or again, if you're going for an internal promotion or something like that, how can you actually make your CV and your interview stand out to employers so that you open up new opportunities and get more offers and more opportunities to progress in your career. So that's what we'll be focused on today. But before we do start the session, I just want to talk a little bit about Foothold and who we are and what we do, just to give you a bit of an insight really as to why we're here for the engineering community. So I've just got a short video for you. So yeah, hope you enjoy. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a bit of an overview as to what Foothold are and why we're here for the engineering community. So you got a bit of an overview of the support that we offer in that video, but these are the main kind of areas that we help engineers and their families with. So we support on money matters, so offering financial grants to people who are struggling to make ends meet, and obviously that's particularly relevant at the minute with the cost of living crisis. Work-life support, so this will be an example of that, looking at how engineers can take their career to the next level, or maybe if they've been made redundant, how they can get back into work. Legal support as well, so across a variety of issues. Mental health and well-being is a big one for us as well, and physical well-being too. We have our flagship digital well-being hub that you can join for free, and also looking at counselling support for engineers as well who are going through difficult times. So yeah, there's lots of different things that we offer for the engineering community in terms of support and advice. And digital support as well, as I say. So these webinars would count as digital support. So we offer webinars on a monthly basis, generally on a range of different topics, again, focusing on the areas of support that we offer. We also have our app, as I mentioned, blogs as well, and our wellbeing hub too. So we do lots for the engineering community and we offer lots of support. And as I say, today we're focusing on career, which we know is an important thing for engineers, the engineering community. So just before I do pass you over to Matt, just want to say one thing about donations as well. We do offer all our digital support for free. So these webinars, again, entirely for free, and anyone can join them in the engineering community. But obviously, we can't just sort of do it off our own backs. We need help to be able to bring the support to you for free. So if you are able to, any donation that you can make today would be really appreciated to help us keep the support going for the community. Again, it can be any amount, it can be £5, £10, whatever it is. Any little helps, certainly in our case. So if you would be able to, I would ask you to consider making a donation today, just you know, so we can keep the support going, because we know it's really valuable to the community. And as I say, I hope you enjoyed this mini series as well. So just a couple of house rules. We do have a Q&A function as well. You should be able to see that on your screens. If you do have any questions about anything that Matt's covered today throughout the presentation, then just drop them into the chat, and we will have a little session at the end to answer these questions. And there is a recording available as well. We are recording this webinar, so if you do have to leave at any point and you end up missing something, don't worry about it, because we will make this recording available to you all you know, soon after the session. So don't worry about it if you have to leave early. I think that's it for now from me. So I will pass you over to Matt now for the main presentation. Thanks, guys, and I'll chat soon. Thanks. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you, Michael. So I'll just wait for you to stop sharing your screen, and then I'll click my buttons at this end. Thank you. That's great. Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to share. I've got 3 screens here, so make sure I pick the right one. There we go. Fantastic. So with a little bit of luck, you'll see my screen. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn my video off, because I've got 3 screens, and the one I'm looking at is going to be over there. And I don't want you to see the side of my head for the whole session. So I'm just going to stop that. And instead of that, you can see the presentation. So, yeah, brilliant to have you all on. It's all about selling yourself in the job market. Just very quickly, who are we? How are we qualified to talk to you about such things? Well, I'm the founder of a company called CBIA. We've got various brands within our business, but I'm a former recruiter. Been running this business now for 17 years. My areas of expertise are at personal branding and career development. We've delivered over 1,500 workshops globally, and worked one-to-one with over 20,000 professionals and executives in over 63 countries. So that's a little bit about us. And I'm going to start with personal branding. By the way, I'm going to rattle through today's session, because I've got so much content that I want to share with you. I don't want to miss anything out. I could have chopped some bits out, but instead I'm going to go at a fair pace. But don't worry if you miss anything, because there's a recording available. But we're going to start with personal branding. So what is personal branding, and why does it matter? Well, your personal brand is brand you. You know, like organizations, companies have a brand, something they stand for. We're in this age now where everybody has an external image of some description. You can't hide away from that. It's kind of something that's just there. The idea behind personal branding is that you manage that. So instead of letting it happen by accident, you're kind of almost managing your own PR, so to speak. I think about how you want to leave an impression on people. Think about how you want the external world to view you, and that's the whole point of personal branding. So it's just all along the lines of your external image is important. It's certainly important if you're seeking a job, but even when you're not seeking a job, when you're just going about doing your day-to-day job, you know, the way that people view you and see you and think about you is important to how successful you're going to be in your career. Interestingly, 70% of employers use social media to screen candidates. So your social media presence is a big part of your personal brand. A lot of people do some interesting things, shall we say, on social media, and perhaps not realizing that 70% of employers use social media to screen candidates. That might tempt you not to use it, but unfortunately 57% of employers are less likely to contact applicants with no online presence. So we're kind of stuck with it, really. The things that we're going to focus on today, your CV, LinkedIn profile, and your interview technique, these all contribute to your personal brand. Best way to sum it up, Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, said that your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And that's important. So whether that be the room you're in at work or the interview room when you're going for an interview, doesn't matter. What people say about you when you've left that room is essentially your personal brand. And that's the foundation of a lot of the things that we talk about. So let's home in on CVs. So what does a great CV look like in 2023? And I actually think this is going to shock a few of you in terms of what we're going to talk about today, because your average person really does undercook their CV. Okay. So a lot of people just see it as a list of jobs, a list of qualifications, a list of contact details, maybe a few bullet points underneath each job that describes what they were supposed to do in that job. But it's got to be more than that. A CV really should be, should we say, a business case that explains why someone should hire you. You know, I was sat with some, and I use this number because it's the people I was sat with. I sat with a bunch of 50K there or thereabouts job seekers. And we actually made them work out how much they were going to cost their next employer if they were successful in their job search endeavors. And they're all quite gobsmacked that they would be costing their next employer about £250,000. That's the investment that next employer would be making in them as a 50K candidate. And that's when you add everything up and assume they're going to stick around for 3 years. So it's quite a big investment for employers. They're making a sizable investment in the people they're hiring. And it's interesting about the effort people put in. You know, I think if I was asked to prepare a tender document and a presentation for a £250,000 3-year contract, I think I'd be working on that for several days. But if you look at a 50K candidate applying for a job, and it's exactly the same, they are essentially pitching for a 250K 3-year contract. It's just an employment contract. And they maybe spend a couple of hours knocking up their CV on a Sunday afternoon and do a couple of hours of cursory interview prep. You know, so if you compare the two scenarios, there's a disconnect there. I think people need to try a little bit harder. I'm going to show you an example on screen. Before I do, this is a good statistic. 92% of shortlisting decisions are made solely on the contents of your CV and LinkedIn profile. So most hiring decisions come down to what's written in your CV and LinkedIn profile. So we've got to get this right. So let's have a look at the this is what we call a chronological CV. This is the style of CV that most people would have. I say on steroids because there's some things about this CV that we've developed that makes it super effective. Okay, and the devil's in the detail. It's not just about having these sections on your CV and thinking, well, I've got those sections, so job done. It's more complicated than that. The devil's in the detail. It's what you write, the message you communicate. If we think about it in marketing terms, if anybody has ever been involved in marketing, to sell anything to anybody, you've got to understand the psychology of your buyer. And it's the same in recruitment. If you're applying for a position, you have to understand, perhaps at the more senior end of the market, what is keeping the decision makers awake at night, and what can you do to make them sleep more easily. You know, engineering's a highly technical profession, and if you hire the wrong person into an engineering role, something serious could go wrong. So that's what's keeping people awake at night. You know, I've got this problem that needs solving and I need to hire somebody to fix it. So the stakes can be quite high. And increasingly so, the more senior one gets in their career. But it's the words and the message within a CV that's crucial, not the aesthetics and the sections. Although, of course, you need the right sections and you need it to look good. So let's go into this in a bit more detail. So this style of CV is suitable for all job seekers, interims, NEDs, consultants. This is fine. This works. This this section at the top, we can call it a profile, we can call it a summary, it doesn't really matter. Imagine you're somebody with a couple of strings to your bow. So maybe you would apply for a technical engineering role. Maybe you're also qualified and experienced to do a project management role as well. So maybe you're thinking, well, I could go off in 2 different directions. Then you might have 2 of these profile summaries, one aimed at the technical role and one aimed at the project management role, as an example. The key skills section. So that's important because when you're applying for positions online, the applicant tracking system, so that's the recruitment software, is looking to match your CV to the job description. So this is one of the sections that helps with that. So you would align that section with the job description. And then the career highlights. So these are what we might describe as little mini case studies. And these mini case studies are designed to revolve around your biggest achievements or projects that you've delivered in your career. You might have a whole heap of these tucked away somewhere. What you do is you pick the best 3 for the role that you're applying for and make sure that they're on page 1. So they work really, really well. And I'll go into a bit more detail about those, but they're written in a methodology called STAR: Situation, Task, Actions, and Result. So that profile summary at the top, really important. That tells people what you are, what you're good at, and must align with the role. The key skills match the job description. The career highlights talk about your biggest achievements or projects. They're very evidence-based. By the time people get down to the bottom of page 1, they should be thinking, yeah, actually, this is a really relevant and talented person that we're keen to put on our shortlist and invite for an interview. Once you've got a CV like this, it actually, one of the benefits is it takes minutes to tailor for each role rather than hours. And that's crucial. We've done some webinars recently on how to tailor your application to a role. And a lot of people have come to these webinars thinking that it's a one-size-fits-all application. You know, they've got one CV that they send out all the time, and they haven't quite got as far as thinking that they need to really tailor it. I mean, we even talk about things like linguistic mirroring and some of the kind of deeper principles of applicant tracking system optimization and things like that. But tailoring your application to a certain job is really, really important. This CV framework that we're showing you here will allow you to do that really quickly rather than wasting hours and hours each time you're applying for a job. So let's have a look at these sections in a bit more detail. So the profile summary, the first thing you should be doing is tell people what you are. So professionally, what are you? So don't be generic. Don't say, oh, well, I'm an engineering professional. You know, that's too unspecific. You need to align it with a very specific job title, ideally the job title of the role that you're applying for. Once you've done that, you need to then talk about a value proposition. And that sounds like a bit of a far-fangled concept, doesn't it? Value proposition statement. But really all we're saying is that you want to describe the value you're proposing to offer your future employer in a statement, in a short statement. And what you might want to do is look at the key remit of the role and try to align your value proposition statement with that key remit. And I'll show you an example in a minute, so don't panic just yet. Then what you'll go on to do is to talk about your key strengths. So what are the top 4 things that you're really good at that you think are really important and crucial to that role? And we write these in what we call a features and benefits style. So we call them FAB statements. So if you're going to tell people you've got a certain strength or a skill or an experience, don't just do that. Go on and explain how that skill or experience will benefit them in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. So if you're in a project management environment and you're really good at managing stakeholders, don't just say that you're really good at managing stakeholders. Go on to explain that smooths the way for on-time, on-budget project delivery by ensuring that disparate stakeholder agendas are kind of brought together to get everybody working towards one common goal or objective. It's that kind of a thing. So describe the benefit, not just the feature. And of course, align this all with the job advert. So there's an example. It's an engineering example. Have a little look at that. What we've done there is we've said what that person is, project supervisor. We've talked about their value proposition, and if you read that, you'll get what I mean. We've said they're an expert in leading the technical and delivery elements of large-scale manufacturing projects, consistently ensuring future-proofing and cost-effectiveness of critical plant and machinery. And then you've got the key strengths, and we got 4 of them written in a features and benefits style, and the ink in red is the benefit. Obviously, you don't want it in red in real life. That's just to show you. So that's what a good profile looks like. Okay, so let's now move on to the key skills section. You might be wondering why we've got a picture of Arnie. I don't know whether you remember the Terminator films, but in the Terminator films, Arnie was sent back in time. He was a machine. He was sent back in time to help the machines take over the world, or at least that's how I interpreted it anyway. Now, the machines haven't quite taken over the world as yet, although Stephen Hawking did warn us that was the biggest threat to the human race before he passed away. But machines, systems play an absolutely crucial role in the recruitment process. In fact, 70% of CVs are rejected by the machines, by the recruitment software, what we call applicant tracking systems, or to be technically precise, the matching and parsing technology within the applicant tracking systems. So we need to try and pander to the machines, to the recruitment software. And having this section here and having that match the job description with keywords is one of the ways we do that. So definitely have this section, have a couple of columns, and just stick stuff in there like that. Okay, and match that up with the job advert. Okay, and then those case studies I talked about, I mean, these are fantastic. I mean, I could talk to you about Aesop's fables. You'd be familiar with the Greek fabulists. Aesop was one of them, and Aesop wrote The Boy Who Cried Wolf. And the theory here was that if you had a message to deliver, to wrap it up in a story is a really powerful way to get that message across. So marketeers will talk about storytelling as a very powerful marketing technique. But bringing that marketing technique into the CV domain is a really powerful thing as well. Wrapping up a message in a story is a great way to get your experience across to a potential employee, but to bring it to life a little bit. So these little mini case studies really bring it to life. Not the easiest thing to write. You've got to have reasonable writing ability, but have a go at these. Write them in STAR: situation, task, actions, and result. But the result part's crucial. You've got to quantify the result. You've got to try and give some evidence that whatever it was that you were doing, you did it well. But word of caution, the examples you pick are weak. It highlights failure. They've got to be relevant and targeted. They've got to be quantifiable. So you've got to kind of align them with the KPIs, the key performance indicators that would have existed in the role that you were performing. There's an example. So the situation is that XYZ, that's the name of the company, required design and development of gearbox infrastructure for their new elevator production line. This person's task was that as design engineer, they led delivery of a new gearbox casting. Their actions were that they reviewed 3D CAD to assess manufacturing feasibility, designed pattern equipment, programmed CNC toolpaths, managed manual finishing of CNC cut equipment to meet foundry requirements, ensured prototype castings were defect and error-free, and secured sign-off subsequent to internal checks and testing. And the result is they succeeded in delivering a fit-for-purpose gearbox casting solution on time and to budget. And that's not the most thrilling result, if I'm really brutally honest, but you get the general gist of how that works. And they go there. You 3 of them there in that career highlights section. Okay, and then your career history, your work experience. It's all about optimizing the order of information. So you probably know that you put your career history, your work experience in reverse chronological order. So the most recent job first. You want to start with a description of your employer. then a summary of your role, then your duties and responsibilities. Couple of lines per bullet point is great. Then achievements, they're crucial. The number of CVs that we see, because of course we write CVs for people as well. That's part of what we do. People pay us to do that. And as a precursor to that, people often send us their CV and say, well, what do you think? Do you think I need your services? And the most common issue with CVs is that people they're just devoid of outcomes and achievements and any evidence that that individual's good at their job. And then if you've been in a role for less than a couple of years, it's probably a good idea to put a reason for leaving. So that's the stuff you need for each job. Okay. Interesting point. Once shortlisted from a CV, 85% of recruitment decision makers will then check you out on LinkedIn. So your LinkedIn profile is just as important as your CV. Okay. And then at the end of the CV, I'll bet most of you have some little line that says that references are available upon request. That's what we see on most CVs. References are available upon request. It's a bit of an obvious statement, really, because if someone says, well, can I have a reference? Not many people are going to go, no. So it's a bit of a pointless thing to say. What's better is to have recommendations. So these are the things that you have on LinkedIn. You request them through LinkedIn. They live on your LinkedIn profile, but you would move a couple of really good ones onto the back end of your CV. And this provides social proof. What I mean by social proof is, think about the last time you booked a restaurant. You probably looked at their reviews. Last time you booked a hotel or a holiday, you would have looked at their reviews. Last time you bought a tumble dryer or a washing machine, you probably looked at the reviews. That's what we do. We look at reviews. We want to know that other people think that the thing that we're going to spend some money on is decent. Social proofing. So this is really bringing social proofing into the recruitment realm. LinkedIn claim that you're 3 times more likely to be contacted about an opportunity on LinkedIn if you have some good recommendations. Pretty compelling evidence there. Don't want something horrible and generic. It's got to be fairly unique, written by somebody credible, but request them through LinkedIn and use them on your CV and on LinkedIn. Okay, good stuff. So hopefully you're still following me. So let's move on to LinkedIn now. So why should you embrace LinkedIn? Well, the largest talent database in the world. The fact that there's 850 plus million people using LinkedIn means that it is a big database of talent, and that's where all the recruiters go fishing for talent. They all have their own login, special kind of license that allows them to access people on LinkedIn. So it's your shop front, it's your window to the recruitment market. It's where people are looking. If you want to be caught, you've got to be in that pond. But think of it this way: you wouldn't go to a meeting, a business meeting, with a homemade business card. So you don't really want to be presenting yourself to your entire network, your entire professional network and potential recruitment network with a homemade LinkedIn profile. So it's important that your LinkedIn profile is professional. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So first thing you need to tackle is your LinkedIn profile. The first section is that bit where you see something like that. But what a lot of people do is they don't put a photograph. That's a big no-no. So make sure you've got a photograph looking reasonably smart. With some semblance of a smiley face. Mine's more of a sort of grin, isn't it, really? But anyway, and then this section at the back, everybody leaves that blank. I say everybody, a lot of people leave that blank because they haven't realized yet that the whole purpose of that section is to load up an image. So I would just be loading up an image that is relevant to engineering. If you work in the oil and gas sector, stick an image of an oil rig. I mean, this is just a mock-up. This was I put this together. I was doing was doing a session for some accountants. So I just mocked up a LinkedIn profile, but you know, you get the gist of it. I've just put a skyline of London. It looks a lot more professional than leaving it blank. So just pick something that's engineering orientated. If you're really stuck to find an image, I mean, you can get royalty free ones, but just go onto iStock or Shutterstock and you can find, there's just there's probably hundreds of thousands of images on there, and they cost about £7. Now, you know, it's worth £7 if you can find £7 to make sure your LinkedIn profile looks really professional. Okay, so that's that first bit. The headline. So that's the, I go back underneath here, right? Or in fact, there next to that is the headline. And people often just leave it as per the default. The default would be, my default would be, it would say Matt Craven, Managing Director at CVIA. And that doesn't really tell anybody anything. So you want to kind of change that into something meaningful. Just a bit under your name. So by all means, tell people what you are. If you're an engineering project manager, well, then it's got to say that. But then go on to tell people what your value proposition is. Remember, we talked about that with the CV. So, you know, it's fine to have the same thing again on LinkedIn. And align that with what your audience is looking for. So my team might put something like this. They're a personal branding specialist and they're experts in training job seekers on how to develop high impact CVs and LinkedIn profiles that significantly increase interviews and job offers. Yeah, so people land on their LinkedIn profile, they read that and they think, oh, right, okay, well, I know what you are and I know what you do and I know how that might benefit me. That's what you want to try and achieve. Okay, and then the about section. So this is not just a copy and paste of the profile on your CV. It should be more conversational. And I'd recommend using the who sees formula. This is a formula that we've developed. So who sees? So who or what are you? So that is, what are you professionally and what's your value proposition? Again, for the third time, we're going to mention that value proposition 3 times. So who or what are you and what's your value proposition? Okay. So the first 3 lines are really crucial. So that's why we get that information there, because you've got to click the see more button to see the rest of it. So the first S in the who sees formula is strengths. So a bit like what we did on the CV profile section, describe your strengths. But this time you're going to give some examples. So if you're really good at delivering manufacturing based engineering projects, say that, but then give an example. And maybe give 2 or 3 examples, or maybe 3 would be about right. So 3 strengths and 3 examples. And then the next E is ethos. So what is your philosophy, your ethos to your work? Or another way of putting it is, what are you passionate about? Describe your feelings towards the work that you do. Inject a bit of personality into it. Make sure your personal brand comes through. And then the final bit is skills. You'll have noticed a change last summer on LinkedIn where it now asks you to put your skills against each job. So that's what you want to do. You want to add as many skills as you can. You'll add 50 in total. So make sure you use all 50. And then the positions section where you write about each job, okay, similar to what you do on a CV. So you'd have a description of your employer. You'd have a summary of your role. So in a nutshell, what was the purpose of your role? You wouldn't have the duties and responsibilities, so the tasks that you describe on your CV, but you would home in on achievements and key projects. And it's much shorter and more succinct than what you would have on a CV. Okay, good. So doing okay for time. So we've done CVs, we've done LinkedIn. Now we're going to move on to interviews. Okay, so the basics of interviews. These are the things I think people get wrong more often than not. So a lot of people think that if they can come up with some reasonably coherent words when asked a question in an interview, they score a point. You don't. Each question is designed to explore a certain skill. You only score a point if your answer gives evidence that you have that skill. So you could give a super duper articulate, well presented confidently articulated, answer. But if you've not proven you've got that skill that question was designed to explore, you score a big fat 0. We are all taught that there's no I in team. Well, actually, there isn't an interview, because if I'm interviewing somebody, I don't care about your team. If you tell me that we did this and we did that and we did the other all the way through the interview, I'm never really going to know what you did. So you need to talk about I, not we. Preparation's key. The way you prepare, and I'm going to show you that in more detail, is crucial. Most people think they know themselves, but they don't know themselves professionally. They only know themselves on a kind of personal basis or an emotional basis. So you fall into the trap of thinking that you know yourself, and therefore people don't do enough interview preparation. So preparation's key. It's about learning yourself as a professional. So let's have a look how that works. What we got here? An interview is a sales meeting. All salespeople have sales training, otherwise they would be poor at their job. It's a fair point. So the companies that you all work for, I guess you've got sales teams, and usually those sales teams will have training on the products, on the company, on the key selling points, on the techniques that they should use. If they didn't, they wouldn't be as good as the next people who have had the training. An interview is about going along and selling yourself. So it is a sales environment, but a lot of people just don't have any training or don't even practice their interview technique, and then they expect that they're going to turn up and be really good at it. But that's a myth, really. So how do you do this prep? Okay, so we talk about the career autobiography. So we all know what an autobiography is. This is your autobiography, but not about your entire life, just about your professional life. So what we recommend is, and we talked about those case studies on your CV. So imagine having a case study for every single key event, project, achievement, learning point that's happened in your career. So all the key events from your career, you've got a little case study about all those key events. And these are written in star, like we said earlier, and you would populate them in a spreadsheet. So I'd suggest making a list of all the skills that you need for the jobs you want to apply for. And these are the tabs at the bottom of your spreadsheet. Okay. And then when you click each tab, you want to have at least 2 case studies, examples, star case studies or examples, something that you've done in your professional life that proves you have that skill. And if you click one of these and nothing comes up, you know you've got a skills gap, and then you can proactively plug that skills gap before you start applying for roles. So that's a career autobiography. Now, competency-based questions, this comes up a lot. These are quite tricky. So competency-based questions are those questions that start with, give me an example of, or tell me about a situation when. And they're forcing you to give an example, because just telling people that you have the knowledge to deal with a certain situation isn't good enough. You need to give evidence that you've been in that situation, and not just been in it, but you were able to drive a positive outcome. So the style of question forces you to give an example. And these competency-based questions are usually revolve around the more behavioral skills that we don't focus on in a CV. So it could be those things like, handling political situations within a business environment. It could be influencing skills. It could be working in a team, that kind of thing. And this is where we come back to STAR, because a lot of people ramble when they're giving an example of anything. The way to stop rambling is to use STAR. So when you're asked a question, give me an example of when you've transformed something. You'd be like, okay, well, the situation was when I was working for XYZ, blah, 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 blah. At the time, I was a senior engineer and my task was to do blah, 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 blah. My key actions were A, B, C, D, E, and F. And the result was that I was able to drive this outcome. But if you say STAR, if you say situation, task, action, result out loud, you've got yourself a communication framework that makes it kind of foolproof. And then all you have to worry about is remembering your example, but you've given yourself a structure that you can't go wrong with. So we call that the ramble prevention technique. And as I said earlier, it focused very heavily on the result, because it's the result, the outcome, that's going to prove you did a jolly good job and prove that you've got the skill. So we kind of covered that really on the last slide, but it's, as I say, it's a structured communication framework to prevent rambling. You're going to say situation, task, actions, and result out loud, and then you're going to kind of give the information around each of those 4 components. We call them mental signposts. All right. And then I'm just going to finish up now with thought leadership, because, and this is really for those of you who are quite senior. So engineering is a subject where research and development, innovation, things are patented. So thought leadership is very much in the domain of engineering, and you can present yourself to your industry as a real leader, an expert, a thought leader. So we look at, is it James Dyson, the Dyson guy? You know, he would be seen as a thought leader, for example. You know, you might not be going as far as an Elon Musk. I'd say that's gone beyond thought leader to sort of celebrity status, but there are lots of people within most industries that are seen as the kind of go-to person, the expert. It can be within a niche of an industry as well. And you can go on that journey. You don't have to be the Einstein of your particular subject. You just need to be the person who got out there and presented themselves as one of the leading lights. It's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. So a thought leader is the person or the business that's seen as an expert in their industry, sector, or area of interest. The go-to person, the innovator, that sort of a thing. Companies do it. Dyson, IBM, Deloitte, McKinsey, they all use thought leadership. Cisco coined the phrase the Internet of Everything and built a thought leadership strategy around innovation. We use thought leadership. What I'm doing today is arguably thought leadership. A lot of the things that we talk about are our ideas. There are inventions. We're not copying, we're innovating. And by being on a webinar and delivering that information, we're presenting ourselves as the experts, which I think we genuinely are in our field. So, you know, I guess as a byproduct of what I'm doing, maybe people would see me as a thought leader in the career development and personal branding world. And it's not done in a, people aren't doing this for arrogant look at me purposes. I actually think as we all get more experienced, older perhaps, maybe it's incumbent upon us as kind of experienced people to pass that knowledge on to other people who might benefit from that knowledge. So I think there's more of a giving back element to it. But by virtue of doing that, you're positioning yourself. It's like, you know, if you go back thousands of years where there were tribes, you know, and you'd have the tribe elder. Why is that person the elder? Because they had knowledge to impart on the rest of the tribe, and they reached, it's just that in a kind of modern day scenario. But there's value to other people. You know, I was talking to somebody yesterday in a very, very different context. And it's actually somebody who's not very well. They're quite poorly. But they keep sharing their journey on social media because they're trying to raise some funds. But also, you know, people have been emailing and messaging saying, I'm really enjoying your journey. I'm finding it inspirational. And I talked to them and said, I find that weird because, you know, I didn't realize that. But I said, well, yeah, people draw inspiration from other people's experiences. And, you know, other people's knowledge and sharing that with the world, it can be a really positive thing. So I only say that because thought leadership can be frowned upon, and I think it's something that actually can be looked at very differently. So for those of you who, you know, I've got real specialist expertise, you can go on this thought leader journey. And this is just really an introduction to it. If you're interested in that, the sort of questions to ask yourself are, how would you like to position yourself to your network or industry sector? And that really comes back to the personal branding piece, and that goes hand in hand. You know, in what space would you like to position yourself as a thought leader or expert? You know, what are you exceptional at? What skills, experiences, and abilities form the blueprint for your success? Have you created or developed any methodologies, processes, tools, systems, or ways of working? I always come back to Prince 2. Once upon a time, project management methodology, I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. Once upon a time, that was just an idea locked up in somebody's head. That's how they delivered projects in controlled environments. But at some point in time, they wrote it down, they gave it a name, and then it became commercialized. And now it's one of the most popular project management methodologies on the planet. That's thought leadership right there. Have you written any articles or white papers or delivered any presentations? Could you run a webinar perhaps on a subject? You know, if you could answer the question, if I was going to write a book, an article, or deliver a webinar, what topic would that be on? That's probably a good place to start your thought leadership journey. Okay, so I mean, that really brings the content that I wanted to deliver to an end. So just to recap, talked about CVs. We started talking about personal branding, didn't we? Give you an introduction to personal branding, which is the foundation of everything. We talked about CVs. We talked about LinkedIn. We talked about interview technique, and we kind of finished up talking about thought leadership. So I realize there's an awful lot to digest there, which is why this has been recorded for you to watch back. But, you know, even if you've managed to get 2 or 3 little nuggets of information that help you on your career journey, then I'll be happy with that. So I'm going to hand back to Michael now. Obviously, any questions, then myself and Michael will be happy to look at those. But thanks for listening to the main part of the presentation, and back to Michael.
Hello, thanks for that, Matt. That was really insightful, really great presentation. So much that you've talked about there, but actually, you know, that was really easy to digest, really easy to follow. So yeah, that was a fantastic presentation. Thank you for that. So just before we close up, guys, as I say, we will have some time to answer some questions. So if you do want to pop them in the chat, or the Q&A function, whichever one, then I'll read those out to Matt, and he'll do his best to answer them, if that's okay. So if you start popping them in there now, that would be great. But we do have 2 that have come in as you've been talking, Matt. So we've got one here. So can I get a CV template? Is that something that you can provide, Matt? Or do you have any that you know of that you can pass on?
Yes, I tell you, the best thing to offer everybody is, and what I can do is I can have my team provide anybody that's been on today's session with a free critique of their existing CV, which might be useful. So if anybody's interested in that, then just feel free to email it through to us at info@cvandinterviewadvisors.co.uk. We'd be quite happy just to spend about 20 minutes with you, passing on some kind of specific and bespoke feedback on your CV. I don't really have any templates that I can send out, because most of the CVs that we've got are kind of you know, real life CVs. We do have some anonymized ones, but they're not going to necessarily be sort of engineering based. But if anybody wants some kind of feedback on their CV specifically, then we'd be more than happy to do that.
Excellent, that's great. So I've had one here from Francis. I received CV feedback recently from an HR business partner of a large telecoms organization, and that recommended to drop the personal statement and career highlights as it was not considered a differentiator and it uses valuable space. Her advice was to have most of the CV talking about the career history, work experience, as this is what hiring managers are most interested in. career highlights included in this section. My CV format was similar to the one you've outlined today. It's a bit of a conundrum to know which format to go with. So yeah, that's quite a long one, but yeah, do you have anything to say on that, Matt? What would you?
I do. I think what Francis has had there is one person's opinion. I think if you look at CVs, I think if you were to buy a login to CV Library, which is one of the biggest CV databases on the planet, I think you'll notice that pretty much everybody has a profile at the top. I think if you were to look at how applicant tracking systems are designed, they all have a section for a profile. I think if you were taught to any recruiter, they would expect to see a profile. I mean, I worked in recruitment for 6 years. I managed 3 teams across London. I've never heard any recruiter say they don't want to see a profile. So I think what you've had is one person's opinion. And unfortunately, we do live in a world now where a lot of people seem to think that their opinion is written or enshrined on some giant rock somewhere on a mountain. I would certainly combat quite strongly against the feedback that you've been given there. The career highlights are more of an innovation. We've been around 17 years. We write CVs for people all over the world. We test and try things all the time. We look at how things are responded to and how effective they are. I can certainly tell you that a well-written career highlight is, or 3 well-written career highlights are received extremely well. Times it goes wrong are when people don't execute it particularly well, or the examples they use are a little bit underwhelming. But I'm going to caveat all that with, it is a game of opinions. You will never, ever create a CV that every single person you send it to will like. It's like a painting. Some people don't like Mona Lisa. That they're in that point there. It is what I'm trying to get across. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people are indifferent. So it's always a game of opinions. But what we've done over 17 years is we've researched and used our combined hundreds of years of experience in the recruitment industry. So I don't doubt that Francis, the person you sent that to, has a view on it. And maybe that view has proliferated across that particular organization. There was always a rumor that Goldman Sachs would only ever consider a one-pager. And that was quite interesting because we heard it many, many times, to the point where I actually rang up Goldman Sachs and asked them if it was true. I spoke to their on-site recruitment team. They said, no, it's not true. So there's often myths around there. Another one is a CV should only ever be 2 pages. Again, that's an urban myth. But the problem you've got is there will be some people who've taken that myth as gospel and then ended up in some recruitment capacity. So I would take certain things with a bit of a pinch of salt. At the end of the day, if somebody doesn't want to read the profile and doesn't want to read the career highlights, it takes them a split second to scroll their mouse down to the career history section and home in on that. Yeah.
I don't have to say it's odd that they'd say that you wouldn't need a personal statement sort of profile bit like that. You imagine that's the doorstep into the CV, isn't it? Really, that's where you get into it and sort of summarize everything. So I have to say that's quite odd to me.
It is. I think possibly, and sometimes, and I don't know what level the role was, but sometimes people don't write them very well. You could end up with 10 CVs on your desk that all start with I'm a dynamic self-starter who can work well in a team as well as on my own and work well under pressure. Yeah. You can literally read that over and over and over again. So if you're kind of confronted with that each and every time, then it can get a little bit samey. And that's where you might get negative to it. So
yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we've got another one here from Anonymous. With regards to recommendations, were these specifically through LinkedIn? I know that references are now very generic. How would you differ between the two?
Yeah, I mean, a reference is something that you would typically get from a HR department of an organization that you've left. And they are generic because organizations don't want the legal liability saying anything that might hinder your chances of getting a job elsewhere. So they've all moved away from that. And usually most HR departments will have a very clear policy that references cannot come from a hiring manager. It must come from HR. And then normally it will only give information about the job they did and the dates they did it between. A recommendation, on the other hand, is something quite personal. That's something that somebody in your personal network might give you. It's usually a lot more insightful. As a general rule, people are only going to write you a recommendation if they've got something positive to say. And it's at your discretion whether you show it or not. But I would be requesting the recommendation through LinkedIn and then adding it to your LinkedIn profile and then picking your best couple, perhaps, and moving them into your CV.
Yeah, that's great. We've got some really good feedback as well as questions on here, Matt, about your presentation. So well done on that. People are asking for the email for the CV feedback. Are you able to send that to me and then I can pass it on in the email when I send out the recording, if that's okay?
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. Yeah, and just if anybody wants to just jot it down, it's info, as in info, info at CV and interviewadvisors.co.uk. But yeah, I'll send that to you, Michael, to whiz out to folks.
Excellent, that's great. Okay, next question. Is it possible to have feedback on my LinkedIn profile too?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course we can. Yeah, that's no problems at all. Maybe instead of sending your CV through, just copy and paste your LinkedIn URL and just pop that through. If anybody does take advantage of the LinkedIn or CV review, just reference today's session if you wouldn't mind, and then I kind of will be able to figure out where you've come from and how to deal with it.
Yeah, brilliant. And another one from Anonymous about applicant tracking systems. Is there a way these can be human friendly so that not only based on the system, while we miss those who have expertise needed, also could these be updated to encounter current changes of diverse thinking / working?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the applicant tracking system software companies will be looking at all these issues on a continual basis. And I must stress that the applicant tracking system does a whole lot more than just focus on your CV. They actually do everything from advertising a vacancy to onboarding a member of staff, almost like a mini ERP system for the whole recruitment journey. But it's the matching and passing modules. Some are more primitive than others, in all honesty. And they just work a little bit like a search engine. But the matching part of it, it's all about signposting your CV to find the right data, and then it's passed into the database of the applicant tracking system. But yeah, recruitment is becoming more sophisticated. You know, machine learning algorithms, artificial intelligence, all that kind of stuff is developing at pace, and that's all moving into the recruitment world. And you know, I think we will see some of the points that you've made there coming more into the recruitment process. I still think in general applicant tracking systems are quite primitive, you know, and some of them just don't work very well, to be perfectly blunt. And it is a bit of a mystery. I mean, we've run CVs through ATS and it's just not recognized a section that's written there clear as day, you know, qualifications, and it didn't pick it up for some reason. But they're only going to be as good as the people that have programmed them, and that's the issue. So yeah, they are becoming more advanced. So I think most of the things you've talked about there, I think eventually will all be taken into consideration.
Yeah, excellent. I think that's it for the questions. So thanks guys for sending those in, really, really useful. I hope you got something from those as well. So just before we do wrap things up here today, I just want to again say a little bit more about Foothold, and obviously we do have more webinars coming up. This is only part one in our Taking Control of Your Career mini-series. So we do have two more. Next one's tomorrow and the last one is on Friday, both at 12 p.m, same as today. So the one tomorrow is about, so obviously today we talked about how you can stand out to employers and find a new job in your organization or elsewhere. But the next one tomorrow is about planning your career to maximize career progression and lifetime earnings. So that's about building yourself up in your current organization, or again moving on to pastures new, but progressing up the career ladder, and how you can make those steps and to be able to, again, open up new opportunities for yourself, reach your career goals, but also to boost your earnings as well. Who doesn't want to do that? So that will be tomorrow at 12. So make sure you sign up to that if you're not already. And you can register over on our website there, just under our webinars section. So as I mentioned at the start, we do rely on donations to fund all of our work, but obviously, in particular our free digital support, we rely heavily on donations for that. But they also do make a difference to people's lives, real difference to the community. So taking a career angle, this is Pubalan. He came to the UK from Taiwan with his family so that he could work as a mechanical design engineer. But obviously, we all know COVID basically had an impact on most people, if not everyone, around the world. And he unfortunately was made redundant at that time, and he lost his visa sponsorship. So thankfully another company stepped in to sponsor him, but he also, he did need to find another job, and he was really struggling. Couldn't get any applications done. He wasn't getting any interviews, and obviously it was a really difficult time with COVID as well. So that was having an impact. So he got in touch with us. We do offer career support, and we provided him with financial support, but also a personal development course, access to that. And we also put him in touch with career coach at Chimento as well, who we're partnered with. And through that coaching and that support, he was able to get, to spruce up his CV, and his own knowledge about interview process and all those different things. And he actually got a few job offers, and he quickly secured another job. So that support really did help him get back on his feet at that time. And obviously then he had an income coming in, so he was able to provide for his family again as well. So it helped him out in a lot of different ways. But that's an insight into the sort of careers and by extension financial support that we can offer to the community. So just a nice little story I thought I'd share with you there. You can support us in other ways too. You don't just have to donate. We do have lots of fundraising events and challenges on our website that you can take a look at, where you can get people to sponsor you and take part in the challenge to raise funds for the community. We're also always looking for volunteers to help us deliver our services as well, whether it's our telephone befriending service to support people who are isolated and lonely, or even just admin for people who are vulnerable and don't have access to modern technology and that kind of thing, so you can help them with important paperwork or life admin and stuff like that. So these little things, they really do make a big difference. And as I say, we're always looking for new volunteers, so that's an opportunity as well to get involved with us. Or you could host a fundraising event like a cake sale or something like that. Every little helps, as I said at the beginning. So you can find out more about that on our website again at myfoothold.org/get involved. And you can connect with us online as well. Obviously, there's our website, as I just mentioned. We do have social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So follow us on there for updates as well. And if you do need support, or if you do just want to get involved, or you have something that you want to talk to us about, you can call us on that number there, or you can email us at contact.us@myfoothold.org. But again, all these details are on our website as well. So don't feel like you have to quickly scribble them down now. And that's it for me. So thank you guys for coming. I really hope you enjoyed that. And as I say, make sure you signed up to tomorrow's session and Friday's session as well. And I'll hope to see you there. The recordings will be sent out as soon as we have them available. So it'll probably be sometime early next week, if not the end of this week. But as I say, it'll be as soon as we can have them. So yeah, thanks for joining us again. Thanks to Matt for presenting today. Really great session. And I hope to see you tomorrow, guys. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.